Assalamu ala rasulillah wa ba'd. So we still have a few introductory points that we have to get through before we get to the first hadith of the 40 hadith of al-Nawawi, because you have to keep in mind this is not just another book or just a hadith book that we're studying. This is a book, and you're going to see today of why and how Imam al-Nawawi compiled this particular book, what his thought process was. And then, inshallah, what that would lead to is a greater appreciation and a stronger discipline of just being patient to really prep yourself that you internalize and respect the knowledge of Imam al-Nawawi and this particular book that has been widely blessed and accepted throughout the ummah, okay? But the couple of things that I want to finish up with you. Can some of you tell me some of the things, the qualities that a student must have when you study the religion of Islam, whether it's hadith or any other science? Tell me some of the qualities of a student of knowledge. Just say them to me real quickly. Okay, the first and foremost should be the most obvious one, which is sincerity, ikhlas. We have a whole section on ikhlas, so we are going to grind that subject, inshallah. Tell me something else. Tell me something else in terms of the etiquettes of a student of knowledge. So they must be sincere. Next. Say that again. So his conduct, his actions. What about him? So he should also strive to be a leader in implementing his knowledge, right? Okay. Tell me a third one. Respect for the teacher and also the teacher with their students, right? There has to be a mutual respect. And even if you don't respect the teacher, at least respect the knowledge that comes from that teacher. Understand? Right? That's going to take priority. Anything else? What is the greatest fitna for a student in this day and age, especially for students in this part of the world, students of Islam? What is your greatest number one fitna or trial or obstacle when it comes to studying the deen?
Seeking reputation or fame.
Okay, seeking reputation or fame. Distractions?
Arrogance.
Say again?
Arrogance.
Arrogance. Anything else? There's one quality that I'm looking for that all students share. Not everyone will be arrogant. Not everyone will be seeking, the celebrity or fame status and all of that stuff, right? But there's one thing, no matter who you are, where you live, what age you are, what background, doesn't matter, you all share the same fitna. What is it? No. Some are lazy, some aren't. Attendance. Just being present. That is going to be your biggest fitna, right? It's time and time again. Listen, I don't know what your lives are about, what you do when you're not here. What I can say to you is this. You have to discipline your presence here for the deen. Not for me, not for the class. There's no attendance here. I'm not going to be marking you and checking your names. None of that. You have to make the commitment, and this was the next question, the secret ingredient that helps you maintain consistency with being punctual and being in attendance. The main ingredient that connects you to all the knowledge of this deen is one word. Don't ever forget it for the rest of your life. That one word is commitment. Make a commitment that I want to study this one particular subject. Not because you have free time, so there's something to do, so here I am. Because you will lose its barakah. You may finish the course, but you will not attain its full barakah. Okay? So you want to ensure you are present, you are consistent in being present, and your heart and your life is committed and focused on this one thing. And by the way, this is just FYI for everyone. I don't think anybody here drives for the class 1 hour to get here. Does anybody drive an hour to arrive here? So here's my point. If somebody can drive 1 hour to be at this class every single week, there's no excuses for anybody else. So remember that. Thunderstorm, blizzard, hurricane, inshallah, I will make the effort and be here. Okay? That's all I will say to you about that. Remind me some of the blessings of seeking knowledge. Talk to me. Give me some of the blessings. What do you hope to achieve out of this? Give me some of the blessings of it. Yeah? So you want to have a nur. Where is this nur? In your life, on you physically? You want Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to bless your actions, bless your words, how you speak. You want Allah to bless your akhlaq. Is a kind of nur. And even if you struggle with that, the nur, the barakah of seeking knowledge, it will show and it will become apparent on you. The way you dress, the way you conduct yourself, the way you talk, the way you interact, all of this will change. And it doesn't matter what you're studying. You're studying something that connects you to Allah, and Allah will bless it with His nur and barakah. And tell me something else. Go ahead.
He makes the path to paradise easy.
Okay, very good. And this is based on a famous hadith, our Prophet ﷺ telling us that whoever treads a path of knowledge, Allah will ease and facilitate their path of Jannah and make that easier for them. Are there others that make dua for the student of knowledge? Yes. Allah permits that all of the animals that are on land and at the bottom of the ocean or the sea, they will all make istighfar that, oh Allah, forgive this person the moment you walk out of your house. As you walk out of your house, angels accompany you. Another hadith tells us that the Prophet ﷺ, Allah sends angels and they bring their sakina, the sense of calmness, peace and relaxation when you leave your home and you are on your journey to seek ilm, to seek the knowledge of Allah. So many, endless amount of blessings for being here. Why I remind myself and you about it is just simply that we make sure that it helps to sort of keep our intentions in line. There is nothing, Al-Imam al-Shafi'i rahimahullah said that there is nothing that is more beloved to Allah after the obligatory deeds than seeking knowledge. Seeking knowledge is the most beloved thing to Allah after you master all of the obligatory acts of worship that Allah obliges upon all of us, okay? The student that seeks knowledge, Al-Imam al-Nawawi rahimahullah has an entire volume where he only talks about what is important to him and what he feels is important to a student when it comes to seeking knowledge. So some of the things that he talks about, I will just say them to you. Sure, we don't need to spend time explaining any of this. But when it comes to some of these etiquettes and some of the qualities of a student of knowledge, Imam al-Nawawi says, of course, at the forefront is sincerity. Every student of knowledge must avoid the characteristics of jealousy, showing off, and arrogance towards each other. These are also diseases of the heart, especially for the student of knowledge. Why? Because one of the first struggles that a student goes through is that when they learn something, arrogance is born, and it's born in a very deep and meticulous way. It's hard to sometimes understand and feel that arrogance is there. If you hear somebody talking about hadith, or you hear somebody talking about a subject that you're studying in class, shaitan is right there, arrogance comes alive. These guys don't know what they're talking about. Man, they need to get into this. I studied that sort of thing. And that is every speaker and every lecturer's battle. You always have to humble yourself and remind yourself, just like Al-Imam al-Shafi'i rahimahullah once said, the more I studied the religion, the more I realized how ignorant I am. Okay? Some of the things Imam al-Nawawi also highlights is the student of knowledge. Knowledge will never be gained by one who is shy or one who is arrogant. What does the statement mean? The statement is by the student of Ibn Abbas, Mujahid, radiyallahu anhu. Mujahid says the statement. Listen to it. Somebody tell me what this means. He says that knowledge will never be gained by the one who is shy or the one who is arrogant. Explain to me the statement. I thought that when you're shy, that's supposed to be like a good thing. Is that something similar to like an introvert? You just you want to say but you can't, and
Shyness can also come from being
Okay. Okay. Anything else? So, what Imam al-Nawawi does here when he mentions this is that a student of knowledge must find a balance between being too shy or being too outspoken and arrogant. They always have an answer, but at the same time, they respect when others are speaking, when others share their opinions. They respect it. And so that's what's meant here. The quality of shyness in a believer, it is something that is blessed and honored in the deen. There is a prophet that was known for this level of shyness and humility. Who is that prophet? Well, all of the prophets, let's be clear, all the prophets, of course, had these qualities and there were leaders in them, but there is one particular prophet that shined above others with respect to this shyness quality. Yeah, the prophet Musa alayhi salam, right? And you know what one of the evidences for that is? The first thing when Allah tells him, "Idhab ila Fir'aun innahu tagha," go to Fir'aun, he's a tyrant. The first thing Musa alayhi salam says to Allah, he asks him for what? قَالَ رَبِّ اشْرَحْ لِي صَدْرِي. Oh Allah, just keep me calm. He's like, oh my God, I gotta go confront Fir'aun. No, let me just relax. اشرح لي صدري ويسر لي, just make it easy. واحلل عقدة من لساني ويفقهوا قولي. Just give me the ability that I don't stutter and mix up my words and I can speak in a nice, calm and relaxed way that others can understand. His shyness and his humility immediately pops up. That's the first thing he thinks about, is he doesn't want to go with the excitement and energy. He doesn't want to go with the fear and all of that. He wants Allah to just keep him calm. And you see that every single step along when Allah prepares him to become a prophet. From the time the revelation begins, from the time he's given the order to go back to Egypt, confront Fir'aun, from the time he speaks to Fir'aun, from the time he stands in front of the sea, all of the miracles that he performed, all of this, you see it manifest. Okay. We talked about the greatest fitna. Yeah, I don't want to spend too much on this. Let's go right into the life of Imam al-Nawawi rahimahullah. Okay? Let's go right into the life of Imam al-Nawawi. Okay. The life of Imam al-Nawawi rahimahullah. So, this particular scholar, anybody know what his name is? His actual name is Yahya. His actual name is Yahya, who is the son of Sharh. And al-Nawawi goes back to a particular city in Syria, so he's originally Syrian, from a city called al-Nawa. Hence, he's given the title Al-Imam al-Nawawi. As a child, Imam al-Nawawi was very different right from the beginning. There are stories of when he was a child, 5, 6 years old. Even one version of that story says he was even younger than that, 3 and 4 years old. He was never the kind of child that wanted to play and just have fun and be attracted to toys and things like that. He was always a child that wanted to be occupied with just listening and hearing and learning things. So there are these like interesting stories of him that he would like play with rocks and build like a fence and just use his mind to, how do I pile one stone on top of another so the structure could stay stable? Like which 5-year-old you know starts to develop those engineering skills with just a bunch of rocks on the floor? And this was his habit. There are stories that other children would try and approach him and come to him and say, let's go play, let's go do this, let's go do that. And he just, in his nature, didn't have that interest. Where do you think that came from, by the way? Where do you think that came from? I mean, everything from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, but from his home, right? And the evidence for that, so one thing that you immediately learn from his upbringing as a child, that the home in which you belong to determines how you are introduced to the religion and how you connect with the deen and how you develop a relationship, a consistent, long-lasting relationship with the religion. All boils down to your upbringing and the home you belong to. Where do I get this from? Remember the story of Yusuf alayhi salam. After Yusuf alayhi salam says to his father, Dad, 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 I saw the star, the sun and the moon and 11 stars all making sujood to me. What did the father say? Father said, don't tell this to your brothers. You know the story. The ayah that comes after that is that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says that this is the same way that He will bless Yusuf, the way that He blessed Yaqub. And who is before Yaqub? Ishaq. Who is before Ishaq? Who is the father of Ishaq? Ibrahim alayhi salam. Yusuf alayhi salam comes from a family of prophets. You understand? So the benefit behind knowing that is that when you come from a home of religion where your parents instilled certain religious values in you, you carry that onto yourself and to your children, and you continue to develop that. This is how you pass on that same upbringing, that same discipline. Scholars all have this. They all come from an environment where they are surrounded, or even if they are not, that they make the sacrifice and they travel and they go and they search for knowledge, which leads me to the next point with Imam al-Nawawi, rahimahullah, that he would constantly travel seeking knowledge wherever he can find, all throughout Syria to Medina, all through wherever he heard that there was a class, that there was a scholar, he would go and spend his entire day studying from those individuals. It is said that his average study time per day ranged from 12 to 14 hours a day. Okay? Which even till this day, we have scholars that do that. We have scholars that study like this till this day. As a matter of fact, one of my professors, once a student asked him, how much should a student of knowledge study per day? And his exact answer was between 10 to 12 hours every day. Otherwise, that student will never become a student of knowledge. So it just goes to show, like, subhanAllah, when certain individuals reach a certain place and a status, their expectations are, mashallah, tabarakallah, way above the average layman Muslim, right? So Imam al-Nawawi comes from that upbringing. As a teenager, he was an obedient son. His father also was a businessman. And Imam al-Nawawi, his father had this wish that, you know, he would eventually pass on the business to his son. But his son never really developed an interest to do that. However, remember this, Imam al-Nawawi still participated and became part of that business. And he helped to run that business as well. What do you learn from that? This is a scholar who is studying full-time, and his dad says, I want you to take over the family business. He doesn't want to do that. He wants to just continue studying and maybe even teaching what he knows. But his father requests for him, and so he listens to the father and he goes and he takes care of the business as well. What do you learn from that? There's a really important lesson here. What is the priority? You, or once your parents are alive, you try your best to serve your parents. So what you learn from that is that Imam al-Nawawi, and of course scholars in general, understand what their priorities are. You know, they're not gonna, he's not gonna be like, Dad, come on, you know, go to the business and sell and do that, make money. I'm going to go to the masjid, I'm going to study Quran, study tafsir. Come on, don't bother me. They understand. Where do you think there is more reward? Do you think there's more reward to go and study? Or there's more reward to at least, you know, assist or fulfill the request of your parents? I don't know. Because they are both profound in the sight of Allah. And it's really hard to say that one is better than the other, right? They are both profound in the sight of Allah. But what it seems like that scholars in general will stick to one formula, and that is because Allah is so strict about obedience and respect to parents. So, you know, they sort of lean towards that opinion, that as long as your parents are alive, you try and serve them as best as you can, above and all other things. There is one quality about Imam al-Nawawi that stands out by far more than anything else, and that is his usage of time. It is said that there is no scholar equal to him when it came to using his time wisely. How old was Imam al-Nawawi when he died? 44 years old. How many books do you think he had authored when he died, by the time he died? He authored enough books that scholars till this day differ if an individual with that lifespan could actually write that much. They have a difference if one man could actually accomplish all of that. So literally, the amount of books and knowledge that he put together literally can fill an entire library in 44 years. So give or take, like maybe the first 10, 12 years, he's not writing anything. So somewhere between the early teens or mid-teens, he starts to write. And so what are we looking at here? We're looking at maybe 20 plus years of his life. He's able to accomplish and learn and become a classic scholar to such a degree that literally all of the major scholars at that time praised Imam al-Nawawi for what he did. And some of them mention, I have a ton of quotes here of some of them saying that what we've seen from Imam al-Nawawi in the short time that Allah has given him of 40 plus years, we have never seen in the combination of various scholars who come together in their lifetime. They don't produce as equal to as this one man. All these other scholars, if they came together and their entire life tried to author and develop the things that Imam al-Nawawi did, this is why one scholar by the name of Imam al-Dhahabi said that there is a story that seems to have some truth to it because of the amount of people that have narrated it. That a miracle happened to Imam al-Nawawi. That one night when he was writing, he ran out of ink. And he couldn't go and purchase ink from anyone at that moment. And Allah caused a miracle that the pen continued to write. And the ink, the cup of ink was completely dried up. And this story is really famous. It's mentioned in his actual collection of fatawas that he has. And many of the other scholars quote a similar story. So this is all interesting. And this is more for you to paint a picture of who Imam al-Nawawi is. Some of the habits for success that he mentions is travel for knowledge. Another habit for success when it comes to studying the deen is that if you are fortunate to, try your best to study in some kind of formal institute. So this is the difference between taking classes here and there and going to an actual institute and learning the deen from the ground up. When you do that, you build a foundation. You have a good understanding of the basic fundamentals of the deen. So this is how you are able now, when you hear a hadith or you study a circumstance that the people are involved in, you're able to come together, look at various ayat and hadith and come to a fatwa or ruling that this is what is most appropriate for these people in this situation. That is not something that happens because you listen to a hour series course on YouTube. That comes from the grind of understanding all of the basic introductory sciences of the deen. Another thing that Imam al-Nawawi highlights is the importance of memorization, which is more or less a lost art in this day and age, right, of memorizing knowledge. And I think we talked a little bit about that is one of the more important early phases of the preservation of hadith. Is that in order not to mix hadith with Quran, scholars ensure that they memorized it. And some of our scholars who specialize in hadith still do that till this day. Okay. Nothing else there I want to highlight. Okay. Let's go right into, I do have a list of some of his writings, but we don't need to spend time talking about that. Let's talk about. Yeah.
I don't know if you mentioned this or I must have missed it.
Sure.
What year after Hijri was he born? What year was it?
His actual birth is 631. the month of Muharram in 631 AH, and he died 676 after the Hijrah. So 631 born and 676 AH. And this was, he fell very sick when he was in Mecca. He developed some kind of illness, and he tried to find a cure in Mecca, and he couldn't. And so he went back to his birthplace, the city of Nawa, and his sickness continued to develop, and he died from that particular sickness. Some of the scholars say between 44 and 46 years old is when he died. So there is even a small difference of opinion of the exact age, but somewhere in that region. Now let's come to the introduction of this actual book of Imam al-Nawawi, the 40 Ahadith. Why did Imam al-Nawawi write this particular book? So the most common response to this is that Imam al-Nawawi saw that there was a need to summarize the basic fundamentals of the religion, to summarize it. Because why? If somebody wanted to introduce the religion of Islam from the very ground up, so I'm talking about who and what is Allah, the need for religion. What is a religion? What does it mean? How is a religion, how do you develop this connection and need to follow a system of code and ethics? How do you do that? And can you survive without religion? What does that look like? Who is Allah? How do we know that Allah exists? What are the qualities or characteristics of Allah? What do we know about Allah? That obviously brings our attention to the 99 names of Allah. So what do these names entail? What does Allah tell us about himself? How do we prove his existence? And then you go up the ladder. Then you come to the study of the Prophet ﷺ and this final messenger, what his task was. So all of this knowledge to develop a connection of the deen is extremely overwhelming for an average Muslim, especially for a new Muslim. Like a new Muslim coming into the religion, it's overwhelming. It's extremely overwhelming because this is what the religion is. Like, we have books that are actually sitting right here in this library. We have like 500 and 600 pages, a thesis of somebody who would do their master's or their doctorate or their PhD in like one word. There's a thesis that I came across when I was a student in Medina. Have you heard of this word called hatta? Hatta idha futihat abwabuha, hatta idha. This particular word, hatta, is usually translated as until. That's it. That's the common translation. But it's far more than that. And there's a student that actually did his PhD thesis on this one word. So he has a PhD in just one word, which is mind-blowing, right? So when you really, for a moment, just pause of just how incredibly overwhelming knowledge of this deen is, this is what Imam al-Nawawi, what his goal and his aim was to putting together 40 ahadith. So you at least now understand, he didn't do it because he needs to author a book and get his name out there. Scholars, so make sure you write this down, okay? Scholars always author, they always write based on a need, period. Scholars always write or author based on a particular need. That need could be a need that they see is weak or it's confusing and it needs to be addressed in the community, or it's a need that students or members of the Muslim community request from that author, please write on this particular issue and how we can deal and navigate this particular issue. Scholars rarely, if ever, would write just for the heck of writing. You know, I'm just gonna put my opinion about all of these different subjects and author it. Rarely do scholars do that. Imam al-Nawawi, so this is the next point about the book. So now you understand his intention was to introduce Islam in a simplified way, by carefully selecting a hadith that each deal with a specific area of the fundamentals of the religion. Every single hadith connects us to one of the fundamentals of the religion. So this is why the first hadith, as you will see shortly, is all about intention and sincerity, right? So then he deals with that issue. Then the second hadith after that is the hadith of Jibreel, which is pretty much all of Islam in one hadith, right? So he puts together this collection. Now the next question is, why this particular number? First of all, how many hadith are there exactly? There's more than 40 for sure. So it ranges between 42 to 44. Okay, 42 to 44, and I'll show you where this difference comes from, right? It's particularly with a couple of hadith, there are variations in terms of the wording. So some prints will separate the two hadith. It'll be the exact same, but one wording is slightly different from another, so it looks like it's another hadith, but it's actually the same, whereas other prints will just keep them both as one, which is how originally Imam al-Nawawi did it. So Imam al-Nawawi originally, this book is exactly 41 hadith, okay? But it's very, very common to see 44 as well. But here's my point. What is the significance of 40? Yeah. If you narrate 40, yeah. So this is a weak narration, okay? You narrate 40 ahadith that you will get Jannah. I mean, I think all of us can narrate much more than 40 hadith, right? But it's besides the point, it's a weak hadith. So where did 40 come from? Okay, why not 40? But why just choose 40? Was it random? No. The next point, why 40? The answer to this is a couple of things. Number one, there were other books that were authored, other collections of ahadith during his time, and those ahadith also had selections that ranged within the 40s. So you had other scholars also that chose a particular science, like let's say salah or fasting or something. And they collected all of the hadith or ayat that they wanted to highlight under that one subject. And it became like this pattern where one book had 45 hadith about fast, another book 42 hadith about salah, another book 40 hadith about iman. So this whole pattern of 40 here, 40 there, 40 this, 40 that, it just became something that the Arabs were accustomed to at that time. This is one wisdom that some of the scholars say why this may have happened. Another one is that 40 was considered a nice round number that wasn't too simple but not too overwhelming. So if you hear 40, you're not going to be like, oh my goodness, 40? But at the same time, you're not going to be like, oh, just 40? It just feels right. So my point here is that when it comes to the number of hadith, it really has no significance behind it. It was just more or less what the people were accustomed to, and it could also be personal preference. Like Imam al-Nawawi just wanted to find a nice round number and just stick to that, and that was the end of it. Okay? So we don't need to spend time on that because it really has no more than what we've mentioned. Any questions?
Sorry, I had a quick.
Yeah, go ahead.
So do we know if it was intentional or unintentional?
It was intentional. Yeah, it was intentional. Imam al-Nawawi intentionally chose 40 plus ahadith. Now, so if the amount of hadith is 41 or 44, so why isn't it called 44 hadith of Imam al-Nawawi? Why not mention the exact number? So if it's not 40 and 40 something, why not just say the exact number? Believe it or not, this is very common in the Arabic language. 40 just sounds better. That's it. Nice round number. It just sounds, it's more comfortable to the ears. 41. Wahid wa arba'in instead of just arba'in. That's it. And let me tell you, Arabic, this is one of the things about the Arabic language that make it extremely powerful. That just the sound of a word can already tap into its meaning. Let me give you an example. How do you say the heavens? Heavens in Quran, what is the word to describe the different levels of heaven or the different levels of the sky? As-samawat, right? As-samawat. One of the words for earth or the dunya is, Allah refers to it as ardun. So you have samawat and ardun. Now listen to the words. We're talking about layers and layers of sky, ultimately leading to layers and layers or levels of Jannah. As-samawat. It already sounds like, wow, there's a lot happening here. And if I say to you, as for the earth, ard, there's barely any movement happening to pronounce the word. It immediately sets the heart and mind to think that ard is referring to something really like cheap or trivial. It means nothing. Do you see? You understand my point? Just the sound links and it taps into the meaning of what it's talking about. So ardun is not a word by chance or, that's the word Allah chose for the earth. This is what makes Arabic so incredibly powerful, that even if you don't know the meaning, just the sound kind of gives you something. It gives you something to think about. Anyhow, so arba'in, 40 versus wahid wa arba'in. So let's just keep it rounded to arba'in. And we do that today, right, with the pennies. Since the whole penny thing is gone, we're doing that now, right? We're just rounding it off to an even number. Okay. Let's get into the first hadith. Oh my goodness. Wow, this time is really moving, subhanallah. Okay. So here's what we're going to do in terms of the study of each hadith. So what we'll do is that I will read first the Arabic and ask all of you to repeat after me, okay? The goal behind this is two things. Is that to get your tongues familiar with the wording, okay? Just to be able to say it. Some of us may have never done this before, right? It's very common for non-Arabic students that they've never ever read an actual hadith in the language of the Prophet ﷺ. So that's the one goal, is just for you to experience that. And secondly, for those of you who wish to take the extra step and try to memorize it, at least, we'll read it correctly based on how all of the tashkilat and things like that are, so that you get the pronunciation correctly. So hadith number 1 is what we begin with. Now, somebody just show me, let me just see one of your books real quickly. Just make sure that it's identical to the one I have. Yeah, okay. Yeah, so we have the same. Fine. Okay. So let's begin. Bismillah. Remember, the Prophet ﷺ says that anything that does not start with Bismillah will be deficient in barakah and blessing. Okay? So Bismillah. An Amir al-Mu'mineen Abi Hafsin Umar ibn al-Khattab رضي الله عنه قال سمعت رسول الله صلى الله عليه وسلم يقول إنما الأعمال بالنيات وإنما لكل امرئ. Let me say that again. لكل لكل امرئ لكل امرئ ما نوى فمن كانت هجرته إلى الله ورسوله فهجرته إلى الله ورسوله ومن كانت هجرته لدنيا يصيبها أو امرأة ينكحها فهجرته إلى ما هاجر إليه. That is the conclusion of the actual hadith. The rest of it is just the where the source of these two hadith. So if you wish, we can read through it, but I won't do that for the rest of the hadith. These are what we say in Arabic, the takhrijat, okay? So these are the sources of that narrate this particular hadith the way that you see it. So the first one, it is said, so this is from Imam al-Nawawi, by the way. So now Imam al-Nawawi says, رواه إمام المحدثين. For those of you who wish, repeat, رواه إمام المحدثين أبو عبد الله محمد ابن إسماعيل ابن إبراهيم ابن المغيرة ابن البردزة من بردزبة. Good. Bardizbah, which is the city that al-Bukhari comes from. Okay, and the next word is al-Bukhari. So the first is the full and complete name of who? Imam Bukhari, rahimahullah. Okay, Muhammad ibn Ismail is how he's commonly referred to. And the next is wa Abu al-Husayni. Yeah, wa Abu al-Husayni Muslimu ibn al-Hajjaji ibn al-Muslimi al-Qushayri al-Naysaburi في صحيحيهما. Yeah, work those vocals, students. في صحيحيهما اللذين هما أصح الكتب المصنفة. So basically, the second name is of who? Al-Imam Muslim. Okay, Imam Muslim is also referred to as Abu al-Husayn, right? Muslim ibn Hijjaj. So that is of the author or the one who had compiled Sahih Muslim. So the point here is the first thing immediately is that this hadith is an authentic one. And now here's how I will encourage you to write your notes. When you look at the hadith, you should see in the actual booklet, there are some spaces. I will tell you exactly what to write. And you are also welcome to any part of the book you see that you want to allocate, that, you know, certain things you want to remember, certain things that are important, relevant to the hadith. I will leave that up to you, how you want to jot those notes down. But the method of how scholars study hadith is that they will have the hadith right in front of them, and all the gaps between, they would put certain like notes of a particular word, what it means or something like that. This is one way. So they'll use whatever vacant spot closest to the hadith. Another method, which is the method that I personally find more beneficial, at least for myself, is that I follow along with the actual word, and if there's a word that I don't know, I literally highlight or underline that word, and then I would write the translation or I'd write the benefit of that particular word. So that translation or that explanation is linked directly to where it's referring to. So that's another way you can do that. So you can have your notes neatly spread on the side or any gap on the page, or directly on the hadith itself. It's up to you, whatever your preference is. So the first thing is Umar ibn al-Khattab radiyallahu anhu. We have to talk about who Umar is. Umar, of course, is the second Khalifa of the four chosen Khulafa al-Rashidin. Umar ibn al-Khattab is one of the most profound, beloved giants of Islam. And he is right there next to another giant who is next to the Prophet ﷺ. And that is, of course, Abu Bakr radiallahu anhu. Umar's a couple of things about him. Umar radiallahu anhu became Muslim. How? Did he just develop a love for Islam? How did he become Muslim? Someone did this for him. The Prophet ﷺ made dua that to ask Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to guide either Umar or someone else to come to Islam. Why? Because before Umar's Islam, he was a leader of the Quraysh, of one of the strongest tribes of Mecca at that time, and he was well respected. Umar was an incredibly massive individual. It was said that when you saw Umar, whether he would be sitting or standing, he was present, which means, like, you know, that one person that's the tallest, that's the biggest, widest, strongest, deepest voice. The presence of that individual without saying a word is seen and acknowledged. That's who Umar radiallahu anhu was. When he sat on the horse, you know, when a horse is riding full speed, it was said that when Umar is going full speed at the horse, you know, when you do that, your body sort of like wobbles with the momentum of the horse. Umar would just be sitting there flat, and the poor horse is going full speed because of his weight, right? He was an extremely tall and heavy individual. As a matter of fact, it was narrated that when Umar would pray, you know, at the last tashahud, before you finish your prayer, there is a prophetic tradition or habit of the Prophet ﷺ that sometimes when his feet were a little sore, he would put his left cheek directly to the ground, and that's how he would finish up his last tashahud before he says, Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullah. Everybody understand, can visualize what I'm talking about? So when you're sitting, at-tahiyatu lillah, and you're done your salah, you're about to finish, the left cheek is directly on the floor, on the carpet. It's not sitting on the left leg. Umar had this habit. Now the Prophet ﷺ only did that when he needed to. Everybody understand? There's a misunderstanding that that was the sunnah of the Prophet ﷺ. The narration says that the Prophet ﷺ would not sit on his left foot in the last tashahud when he felt like his feet was sore. He'd been on his feet for a long time for the day or whatever the case is, right? So to relieve his weight from putting all his weight on his left foot, he would put his left cheek to the ground. Umar did this all the time. Every salah, all the time. When asked, why do you do that all the time? His response was, I feel sorry for my foot. Because if he had to sit on his foot every single day for every salah, he might have problems, right? So Umar was described as he had a nickname. In Arabic, we call the nickname a kunya. And his kunya was what? Does anybody know? Say again? When I say kunya, think of it like a nickname. So that is one of his, Abu Hafs, but he was also referred to as Abul Asad, right? Abul Asad, the father of the lion. Why? Because he was described as somebody who in battle or confronting the enemy, he was like a lion. But when it came to one-on-one with the other companions, with the Prophet ﷺ, with his wife, they all described him that he was like a little kitten. So he had a soft and gentle side to his character, but he also had this dominant side that was very intimidating. And can you imagine, we all know the famous story that Umar is so, his personality is so strong, he's so intimidating, that even shaitan is scared of him. Imagine that. Even Shaitan says, I can't even take the same path and sidewalk that Umar goes because, it's just too much for me. So this is Umar. So this is just a brief background. How did Umar pass away? How did he die? He was killed, right? Does anybody know briefly when, like, not the date, like what happened when he was killed? No, like he was stabbed when? Like what was he doing? Was he at home? What was he doing? He was praying what? What salah was he praying? Fajr salah, okay? He was praying Fajr salah, and the first ayah or the first rak'ah, he began to read portions of Surah Yusuf, and then as he went down for ruku', that is when, what's the name of the person who killed him? Yeah, Abu Lu'lu'a, okay? Abu Lu'lu'a. So you probably hear people also pronounce it as Abu Lu'lu. He was the famous enemy of Umar radiallahu anhu. Why did he kill him? Why did Abu Lu'lu'a hate him to the point where he killed him? He actually stabbed Umar 9 times in his stomach. And he walked through, he planned it at Fajr time. Why? Because there's no lights, it's darker. So you conceal his identity. So when everybody went down for ruku', came back up, as they were going for sujood, Abu Lu'lu'a crawled through and got to Umar radiallahu anhu and stabbed him 9 times in his stomach area. Umar dropped to the ground immediately. And one of the companions stepped forward, and all Umar did, imagine this, right? Somebody just attacked you. You're literally bleeding to death. Umar shouts out, somebody continue, come, finish the salah, finish the salah. Just imagine, like, he's literally dying, and the only thing on his mind is not catch the person who did this to me. He's like, just finish up Fajr, because I don't want to meet Allah where I started the prayer and it wasn't complete. And the person who came forward finished up and read Surah Al-Kawthar, the smallest surah, for obvious reasons. When Abu Lu'lu'a did what he did, he tried to escape. When the prayer was done, the companions went to get him, to grab him, and in that commotion, he stabbed 13 more people, 13 more companions, before he took his own life, right? So it was quite dramatic, but the point here is that, at the end of all of this, when Umar finally knew that, it was destined for him, that this was going to be his end, a few days later he died, he asked permission from Aisha radiallahu anha to have her spot that she had hoped for herself to be buried beside the Prophet alayhi salatu wasalam. So Umar asked his son Abdullah, go and ask Aisha if she agrees to it and if she's okay with it, because she has all haqq and right to refuse. And Aisha, of course, says, how can I refuse somebody that the Prophet, like my husband, the Prophet alayhi salatu wasalam, loved dearly and trusted to be the leader of this ummah? How can I say no to him? After that, he died. Umar radiallahu anh is the only companion to narrate this particular hadith, and that is why it is crucial. So let's get right into the hadith now. That is why in the translation you see, so this is the Arabic. That's why in the translation now you see it says actions, but before it says, I heard the messenger. This part right here. Everybody see that? I heard the messenger. Now, believe it or not, this particular hadith, scholars differ who is speaking. Is Umar narrating in his own words, I heard the Prophet ﷺ say this? Or is he narrating exactly what the Prophet ﷺ is saying? You know how sometimes I'll say to you, I heard Muhammad in the hallway say that he was coming to class today. I heard it, like he said it to me that he was coming to class today. Does that technically mean that Muhammad's exact words to me was, I am coming to class today? Or he could have said it, I'll be there. No, I promise, don't worry, I made time, you'll see me. Like he could have said it in 10 different ways. But when I say to you, I heard Muhammad say he's coming to class, doesn't necessarily mean what I'm saying to you is his exact words. Even if I say to you, I heard it with my own ears, he's coming. Do you understand my point? So scholars differ But the majority opinion is that these words that you read, that Umar radiallahu anh is saying, I heard from the Prophet والسلام, is the exact wording that he heard from the Prophet والسلام. Why do scholars the majority come to that conclusion? Is because it's Umar. And Umar does not have a single hadith that he narrates that is questionable. He is an authentic narrator. Anytime you see any hadith with Umar's name attached to it, it is by default authentic. Aisha is the same way, radiallahu anha. There's not a single hadith except that if Aisha's name is attached to it, it is an authentic one. As a matter of fact, sisters, you should know this. There is not a single female narrator who is da'if. Every female who has ever narrated a hadith are all authentic. Every single one of them. Okay? Actions, so إِنَّمَا الْأَعْمَالُ بِالنِّيَّاتِ. Let's break this down. The word إِنَّمَا. إِنَّمَا, everybody see this. Which means, where is it here? This particular word. إِنَّمَا. So I'm just going to point to it. You guys have the translation in front of you, so that's fine. You can come along with that. Innama is a real emphasis. Innama, you can write at the top of it. This is an emphasis in Arabic. It's found throughout the Quran and throughout Arabic. It is a part of the language. Innama, it literally means indeed, by no means. There is zero doubt. What you're about to read that comes after this word is 100% the truth. إِنَّمَا الْأَعْمَالِ. So Umar radiallahu an says that this is whatever it is that he's about to narrate is 100%. There is no, like he's not thinking, he's not, none of that. And he says, إِنَّمَا الْأَعْمَالُ بِالنِّيَّاتِ. That indeed, let's go to the actions are according to their intentions. So now we have a lot to talk about. First point, intentions. So we will address the word, the actions, that particular after. Let's start with niyyah. Okay, so intention. What is intention, students? What is it? This is a $1 billion question, by the way. What is the intention? Is it a feeling? Right? Is it a state of mind? Is an intention, is it reflected through a particular way of thinking or thought? What is it exactly? And so scholars have differed on it. Some of our ulama say that the word for intention, i.e. niyyah, is a word that was used to describe which direction an individual was traveling. They would use the same word, niyyah, to describe which direction. And so from that, over time, the meaning of intention and niyyah, they became one. And so people started using the word niyyah to describe what they felt here in the heart, and it resulted in a decision or an action that came from that feeling. So if they felt like, I want to walk from here, I want to go to that room, and I want to go to that room, and I want to sit down, and I want to recite some Quran. They're not verbalizing this. Their heart is like, I want to get there, and I want to go there now, and I'm just going to quietly move and get there and just recite some Quran. That direction, that feeling from the heart is what's called a niyyah. And as a result, it causes the person, it causes the student now, it causes the individual to now manifest. An action now starts to illustrate what that feeling is, what that direction is in the heart. So a couple of things now. Number one, intention literally means a direction or an aim to something. That's number one. Number two, Ibn al-Qayyim rahimahullah says that the Islamic definition of the word intention is the spirit of the actions and the source of those actions. Write this down. It is the spirit of the actions and the source of actions. So the spirit of actions and its source of actions. So the spirit of the action, meaning the intention is that feeling, that will, that spirit, whatever you want to call it, that's your niyyah, that's your intention. And a'mal is from that spirit, now it comes and it manifests and it looks like what it looks like. So another example, I want to go and pray Salatul Isha. and it's not going to be dhuhr, it's not going to be anything else. I'm going to pray Salatul Isha. Immediately your heart and mind now starts to interpret and create an image of what you're about to do. You start visualizing what, students? Do you start visualizing that the first 2 rak'ats are going to be really quiet? No. You start separating Isha now from everything else. Then you start immediately, this all happens literally in seconds. Your mind starts to process that Isha is and not 3 rak'ats. So your intention now gets zoned into Isha, Isha, Isha. Do you understand why scholars now say Salah is nullified if after you say Allahu Akbar, you forgot what you were praying? You have to start immediately, right again. So if your intention was Isha, but you got into it and somehow your mind just wandered or your heart just wandered and you thought it was Maghrib and you're like, Allahu Akbar. And then you just like, wait a minute, it's Isha. You don't just change and just continue. You break out of it, the whole prayer is nullified. Why? Because of this hadith. This hadith, what it teaches us. So you understand what the intention is. You understand where the intention comes from. It's here in the heart. And you understand that whatever is here is now going to manifest into some movement, some action. This hadith is proof that the intention is always linked to an action, or the action is always connected to an intention. They are never separate. The only way they will be separate, we'll get to that in a minute. So let's just make this first point clear. Every single action is linked to an intention. And that action has to be an action that is done for the sake of Allah. It can be anything. It could be a worship. It could be you just sitting down and eating. You're hungry, you're taking care of everybody. It could just be you exercising. The point is that that action is linked to an intention, that it's a responsibility. I do this thing and fulfill this thing because this is what maintains my connection with Allah. So we watch what we eat, we watch what we say, what we do, how we behave, how we sleep, how we sit, how we talk, how we enter, all of these things. These are all called a'mal. But then, is it possible that one can perform actions without any intention, just randomly? Yeah, we're all doing it right now. Some of us got a hand like this. Some of us are like this. Me too. Some of them like this. Sometimes my hand is swinging this way, that way. So scratching this, going back down. Not every movement requires an intention. My intention is now to put this arm back here. Intention now to scratch my left ear. Like, we don't do that. So what this does now is, that is where the differentiation happens. Actions are of 2 types. One of them is called amalun. The plural is a'mal, which is in this hadith. A'mal is the action that is connected to an intention and has a specific way of being done. You don't get to decide how an amal is done. Allah tells us how an amal is done. The action that is just random, moving the hands, how we sit, how I scratch, how I turn, how I this and that, in Arabic is called fi'lun. And Allah uses both of these words for action in the Quran, both. Allah tells us that He monitors both the actions that have an intention to it, and also those random actions that people do on a daily basis. Also, that is monitored by Allah. Everybody understand? Amal is intention, yeah. And fi'l is without intention. Just random, spontaneous, just habits that people have, right? So amal, which is what's mentioned in the hadith, is an action that is connected to an intention, and the action has a very specific way. Allah gives us instructions of how to do that, how to perform a amal. So when you read verses that says وَالَّذِينَ آمَنُوا وَعَمِلُوا الصَّالِحَاتِ, it doesn't say وَالَّذِينَ آمَنُوا وَفَعَلُوا الصَّالِحَاتِ. It's always amal, 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 which is the word used here. Why? Because what matters, if you want to do something to bring yourself closer to Allah, that's called amal, because it requires an intention and it has a specific way of being done. Whereas all of the other random things that we do that we don't think about, we don't sit there and reflect on, that is called, those are like the miscellaneous type of actions, those are called fi'lun or fa'lun, okay? Fa, ayn, lam, fi'lun. Okay, I don't want to really touch on or spend time on the language too much. There are quite a bit actually, but we will do a few of them here as well. Is the intention, so here's the next thing, right? The intention, is it something that you should verbalize? Does it come from the tongue, or should you just depend that it's in your heart and that's it? Do you always have to pronounce, I'm about to pray Salatul Isha, 4 rak'ats. Allahu Akbar. Must you do that? The scholars have both these opinions, okay? Both of these opinions exist amongst our ulama. The majority opinion is that it is not required for you to verbalize your intention unless you are instructed to do so. And there is only one moment for the Muslim where they are encouraged to verbalize their intention. Only one moment for one thing. What is it? No, it's for Hajj or Umrah. When you go into the state of Ihram, when you go into the state of Ihram, the Prophet ﷺ would verbalize his intention. So, you would say, I make an intention, or you can say it in Arabic, nawaitu lil umrah an so and so. I make intention to do umrah for so and so, for yourself or for somebody else. I'd make intention for umrah and hajj for so and so, for yourself or somebody else. Right? This is the only time. And even then, scholars say it is perfectly okay that if you don't verbalize the intention for your ihram, that it's still valid. Otherwise, the majority is that the intention is always from the heart. But I just want you to know, because we're studying this, that these two opinions do exist. The Prophet ﷺ mentioned in a hadith that two Muslims who will meet with, now listen to this hadith, two Muslims who will meet with their swords out, and the killer and the one that is killed will be in the hellfire. The one who kills and the one who has been killed, they both will be in the hellfire. A companion asked, Ya Rasulullah, how is it that the one who was killed could also be in the fire? And the Prophet ﷺ said that the one who was killed also intended to kill the other person. Even though he died first, he had the intention to kill this person as well. So you understand? So why I share this with you is just to further highlight that you are rewarded. So what this narration, and there are several like this, by the way, make sure you write this down. What this narration tells us is that if you have the intention to perform an action and you don't end up doing the action, whether it is good or bad, are you accountable? According to this hadith, if you have a strong intention to do something, good or bad, but you were not able to do it, let me add, for reasons beyond your control, are you accountable? You had no, so let's make a very simple example. I have an intention to get to the masjid for Salatul Isha. That's my intention. But as I got onto the 401, I got stuck in traffic and I missed the entire Salah. Do I get rewarded for the Salah? Why? Because the intention, but the action, was it my fault that I couldn't complete? There was traffic, right? I can't control that. However, yeah, but here's the thing. But let's say you make an intention to wake up for Fajr on time tomorrow, but you binge about 10 episodes on Netflix, it's 2 a.m., go order a quick pizza, and then you knock out at 3 a.m. in the morning. And then you wake up at 11 a.m. And you're like, oh, subhanAllah, I fell asleep. At least I had my intention, khair. Do you get rewarded for your fajr? No. Why? Because you had control and you didn't take the necessary steps to perform that action. You didn't prep yourself. You didn't do the things you had to do. Go to sleep early, set an alarm, do something, get into a sleep routine. You didn't do any of that. So now you will not get the reward of your Fajr prayer. Even though you still do it, you will not get the reward of that. So my point here is that this same formula works both ways, okay? Yeah, go ahead. Okay, we're coming to that. So this is a good question, right? That if you intend to do the good thing, you will get reward for performing that good deed. But if you intend to do a bad action and you were not able to fulfill, you didn't follow through with that you will do what? You will be rewarded instead, because you didn't end up doing the action. There's a condition behind this, right? You see, this is why it's so important to study Hadith, okay? There's a condition behind this narration. You have an intention to do something wrong, but you did not follow through. You weren't able to do it. Will Allah punish you as though you did it, or will you be rewarded because you didn't follow through? Both are the correct answer. What is the thing that differentiates which side of the coin you belong to? Whether you are punished still or you are rewarded for not doing it. How do you get on either side of this conclusion? It's all about your intention. And the intention, it's all about, were you able to control your ability to do that wrong action? If you are able to control it and you physically stopped yourself. So let's be straight and clear about this. The brother has the intention, he's gonna click on that website, okay? And he's gonna look at something haram. So he sits down and he's on his phone or whatever, he's on his computer, and he goes on Google, he types the website, he clicks enter. Now there's a list, there's no images, but he sees it and he's like, oh, no. He X's the box, he shuts it all down. He's like, he takes his phone, he's like, oh, just get away. No, I gotta fight this. What happens to him here? Is he rewarded or punished? What happens to him? He gets rewarded. For what? What's the reward for? Even though his intention was the opposite. He did not, the formula is not complete. Now, here's the thing. Same example. Okay, watch how precise you gotta be about this, okay? He sits in front of the computer. His intention is to go look at this haram. He types it on Google, clicks enter. And he clicks, the video is loading, and all of a sudden the electricity shuts down. And he's like, are you kidding me? And I saved all day just to have this time. Everybody's gone, I'm home alone. You know what? Allah is probably saving. Alhamdulillah. Is he punished or is he rewarded? Even though he didn't shut off the electricity, it shut off on its own, he still gets punished for it. You understand? Because of his niyyah, and the reason why he wasn't able to fail it was not something that he initiated. He didn't make that effort to do that, to stop it. If the electricity was on, he would be sitting there. You understand? So there's no like twisting and turning and playing around when it comes to the subject, which is the one thing that I appreciate about this subject. You can never get it wrong when it comes to the intention. Never. You can't fool yourself and you can't fool anyone else. Okay? Yeah. Yeah. So Allah spares that person. Allah spares that person, sure. But they have to be accountable for the intention. That doesn't get thrown out and ignored. That's why do we say that? Because of this hadith. This hadith highlights to us that the intention matters. You don't get to throw that out just because the action didn't follow through. Whether it's in your control or not, you don't get to just ignore that. I love that because everything counts. Like everything that we feel and think of, all of it counts. So it's remarkable just how precise our deen is. Next week, inshallah, we'll conclude this hadith and start the next one. So definitely come with your game face on, because we will start to move now. Next week's hadith is fairly long, so we will do 2 sessions of next week's hadith, the hadith of Jibreel alayhi salam. But this is not the time where you want anything to disrupt your attendance here, because you will miss out on a lot of content now, okay? Students, وآخر دعوانا أن الحمد لله رب العالمين. And inshallah ta'ala we'll see you all next week. بإذن الله.